What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is LazyDaze Tubby, and I'm back at it again on my solo channel doing some more history reaction for you guys today. And it is some more Sabaton History, and it is their episode, The Killing Ground, Sabaton History, episode 82. I'm really looking forward to finding out what they've got in store for me today. Sabaton make amazing music and amazing content in general. Nindy Idol and the band members have such a great dynamic, and it's always good to see. If you haven't already, head over to the Sabaton History page. A link's in the description box down below. If you guys are enjoying my reaction and looking forward to future reactions, you know what to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But we're going to jump straight into this one.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this new episode of Sabaton History. My name is August Strindberg.
Och jag heter Hjalmar Branting. Toot toot!
That's the one thing I like about a lot of YouTube content creators, including myself. We don't care if we look like twats. It's all about trying to have a little of a laugh. And if that means that you're laughing at us and not with us, that's absolutely fine as well. And yeah, Nindy Idol seems like he's got the same sort of mentality.
Around the beginning of the 18th century, the Swedish Empire, under its king Karl XII, Charles XII, found itself at the height of its power. Swedish influence spread far beyond its own realm, and it began drawing most of Northern Europe into its political sphere. And as always, with great power came great responsibility. To the empire's south, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was increasingly succumbing to internal strife and destructive foreign influence. Without effective leadership, Poland was pretty much in constant political flux. The squabble of different aristocratic camps destabilized the kingdom ever closer to the point of anarchy. Swedish King Karl sought to put an end to this. He ousted the former regent, August II, and instead put his own candidate, Stanislav I, on the Polish throne. Karl hoped that with his backing, Stanislav would be able to not only stabilize the country, but also act as a useful political puppet to the Swedish kingdom. This was easier said than done.
Of course.
August, who not only wanted the Polish throne back, but was also the Elector of Saxony, did not take the ousting lightly. He got in contact with Tsar Peter I of Russia, who was busy challenging Swedish power in the Baltics. United by their animosity for Karl, they formed an anti-Swedish alliance. Then, at the head of a Russo-Saxon army, August occupied Warsaw in 1704, bringing Stanislav's usurpation to a halt. The agitated Polish people actually refused to fight for Stanislav, who had to flee the city and take refuge with the Swedes.
Very interesting.
Sighing heavily, Karl set his army to march, soon recapturing Warsaw. The Swedish army was known as the most formidable and professional military machine at the time in Europe.
I can't wait to find out more about them. We will get to the 30 Years' War, I believe it is. I don't think it is that now I've said it. I think once again I've made a twat of myself. But there's a highly requested series from Kings and Generals regarding the Swedish history, and we will get to it. It is something that we're looking forward to finding out.
And had beaten the Saxons repeatedly in the field, even heavily outnumbered. But it did take months to secure the Polish throne. All the while, Peter's Russians were raiding Karl's possessions in the Baltics. It was not until the late autumn of 1705 when Karl finally found himself freed of Polish politics. With Stanislav's crown secured, he could now gather the bulk of the Swedish army and march against those pesky Russians. Although his advisors did point out that winter was not a good time for campaigning for obvious reasons, Karl just laughed in their faces. His soldiers had rested all summer long, so they might as well take to the field now. True to their king, the Swedish army set off. And for a while, the Swedish army disappeared from sight into the rough Lithuanian countryside. Marching through deep forests and treacherous swamps, the Swedish soldiers made a 180-mile-long journey in just 17 days. They surprised a large Russian force under General Ogilvy, who had set up camp in the fortress of Grodno and who was not expecting such a march in winter. So at the beginning of January 1706, 20,000 Russian soldiers were trapped and besieged by Karl's army. For the next 2 months, the siege continued, and General Ogilvy's troops suffered dearly as their supplies dwindled. For Tsar Peter, this situation was cause for real panic. For this was not just a fortress garrison, but a whole army corps that was trapped in Grodno. If they were defeated, a full Swedish invasion would most certainly follow. Even worse,
Yeah, it's a big old force they would lose.
Peter's recent political reforms had made him many internal enemies among the Muscovites, who just seemed to be waiting for the opportunity to incite rebellion against his rule. So
I really want to go see Moscow at some point. Obviously, I'm not able to at the moment because of the situation that's going on. But that artwork there looks absolutely beautiful.
Peter urged his Saxon ally to break the siege with an attack from the west. August, who's not only known as the Strong, but also as someone who was extremely stubborn, was also keen on getting his revenge. Back in Poland, only a small Swedish token force of fewer than 10,000 men under the command of General Carl Gustav Reinhold had remained to keep their eyes on the Saxons. Knowing that his own forces would outnumber the small Swedish contingent by far, August planned to end Swedish influence over Poland once and for all with a single decisive stroke. So August not only began gathering 15,000 men himself, he also ordered his favorite general, Matthias Johann von der Schulenburg, to set his 20,000 men into motion as well. Reinhold, however, was no fool. He sensed the trap that was being set for him. Instead of waiting, Reinhold broke camp immediately. His strategy was simple. He could not hope to win against the combined numbers of his enemies, so he needed to deal with the two armies one at a time.
It's a very smart move, and yeah, stop the two forces linking up.
Reinhold gathered his force and feigned his retreat, and Schulenburg took the bait. Without waiting for his liege, the Saxon general gave pursuit, sure of a quick victory. Near the town of Fraustadt, today's Wrocław in western Poland, he caught up with the Swedes. In the early morning hours of February 3rd, by the Swedish calendar, the two generals prepared for battle.
Okay.
Around 20,000 men under Schulenburg faced off against fewer than 10,000 Swedish soldiers. They stood
Really? Holy shit.
apart on a 2-kilometer wide open field. In the midst of winter, the ground was frozen, and a thick morning fog had descended. The field was broken by lots of small...
Imagine, like, you've got the opposite, the issue of a fog of war, pretty much, and also musket fire, limiting your vision even more. Crazy.
Small ditches and frozen streams, which made large formations difficult to maintain.
Yeah, of course.
Schulenburg placed his men in a long line, with barricades in front of infantry and artillery. The flanks were guarded by his cavalry. The Saxons clearly outnumbered and outgunned their enemies, fielding 37 artillery pieces, while the Swedes had none.
None? None?
Schulenburg felt so sure of victory that he ecstatically rode up and down the lines, declaring that no quarter was to be given and no prisoner would be taken. He even sent envoys to Potsdam, urging the Prussian king not to harbor any Swedish refugees after the battle. But while the Swedes were amongst the most formidable soldiers, the same could not be said about Schulenburg's force. Most of his soldiers were conscripts, some even French prisoners or Swiss mercenaries that had been pressed into his army. And
They're not gonna be loyal for long.
the 7,000 strong Russian detachment on loan was of doubtful quality. General Reinhold placed his own troops into 4 groups. More than half of Reinhold's forces were highly mobile cavalrymen and dragoons, and he had them in squadrons on his flanks, while the center was to be dominated by the Swedish infantry.
Yeah.
His plan was simple. Hit them first, hit them hard. At high noon, the Swedish formations surged forwards,
And sometimes that's all you need.
while Reinhold's infantry moved up to meet the Saxon.
It's not called a glass hammer for nothing.
Center, the Swedish cavalry circled around the flanks in a wide arc. On the Swedish left, the cavalry made such a quick advance that the Saxon horsemen panicked. Without firing a shot, the men turned and fled. On the right, a somewhat similar scene unfolded. Although the Swedish cavalrymen were slowed by the frozen streams, the Saxon cavalry only offered weak resistance, and after a few attacks, the Saxon left gave way and also turned. Smaller Swedish squadrons gave pursuit, but the rest turned and attacked the Saxons from the rear. In the meantime, the Swedish foot soldiers had closed in on the center and were taking the brunt of Saxon artillery and musket fire. Still, in typical Swedish fashion, the men marched onwards, seemingly unfazed by fire and death. At the range of only 10 meters, the Swedish infantry unleashed a devastating volley into the enemy ranks. Then they drew their swords and crashed into the confused Saxon and Russian lines with steel. In furious close combat and threatened from all sides, the Saxon lines quickly collapsed. The French and Swiss auxiliaries had already thrown down their arms and defected to the enemy.
I knew that was going to happen. No shock there.
The Swedes had also captured and turned the enemy's own cannons against him.
Now that's just a big boo-boo.
Faced with the choice of being cut down by cannonballs or cavalry sabers, the Saxons either surrendered or died where they stood. Only the Saxon Guard defended itself until the afternoon. The main battle had lasted maybe half an hour and was a resounding victory for...
Well, the glass hammer didn't smash. It done its job. It crumbled the opposition there.
The outnumbered Swedes. They had captured large stores of guns and ammunition and destroyed Schulenberg's army nearly entirely. Contemporary sources claim that a lot of Russian prisoners were shot after the battle, but historians are still divided about the scale of the massacres. Tsar Peter, however, was quick to exploit the allegations for his own propaganda means to save his throne. Nonetheless,
of course, any good political leader will use something like this as propaganda for themselves.
After Schulenberg's defeat, August himself faced a rebellion in his own aristocratic ranks. The Saxon noblemen forbade him to go on any more offensives against the Swedes and to disband the troops he had already gathered immediately. Karl, of course,
He had to disband his troops that he had ready to fight them.
was delighted to hear of Reinhold's victory and promptly awarded him the marshal's baton. And although General Ogilvy had escaped the siege of Grodno, Karl knew that his troubles in Poland were a thing of the past. Now it was time to deal with Peter and his ambitions before the Russian Empire had a chance to rise. Joachim, the interesting thing to me from the outside for this song is that it is about a Swedish victory when Sweden was a great power, but it's also not a song about Sweden being we're the great guy, boy oh Sweden.
It's not a proud moment in Swedish history at all.
How do people perceive that centuries later? Like the murders, I guess, is the only way to describe it.
It is, absolutely. Every country has, moments to be proud of and to be ashamed of in the past.
Sure.
And
He is so right there.
this is one of the moments we should be ashamed of. When we did the Carolus Rex album, being a political minefield as it is, even talking about the Swedish Empire in those days,
Yeah. No,
it was important for us to not only show, the good side of it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there is a danger of that.
Yep.
Romanticizing. But you guys have been pretty good, like, especially with the stories, even with Gottmetons and stuff. You have to talk about the dark sides of that. And just after this is Poltava, which we already covered.
Yep.
And that didn't go well
No.
mechanically. But this did go well mechanically.
Yeah.
I'm interested to find out what the next song is.
It's a victory for sure.
I mean, and no, it was a genius. It was a brilliant, the double enveloping movement was a brilliant tactical and strategic and operational victory. I mean, on every level, it was a fantastic victory. except you guys were dicks.
Yeah, we were at least trying to avoid falling into the trap of glorifying Sweden's role in these times.
Well, you can there are things to be glorified.
Oh, yeah.
And there are things that the way Sweden used, for example, musketry and musket infantry, that was unprecedented in the history of warfare. That was an absolute revolution that affected war for the next 250 years.
Gustavus Adolphus' use of light artillery.
Yeah. See, these things, you can totally write songs about these and glorify these. What I'm also impressed with now that we've done some 71, 72, 70-something episodes. You guys say you're just chroniclers, and you don't dig, as you say, so deep into the stories, but I think you dig a lot deeper than you realize, because you can just toss off things like that. Well, Gustav Adolphus' use of artillery, light artillery specifically, light artillery for what? Most, rock stars don't throw things off like that. Well, Sweden, Gustav Adolf, I say Gustav
There's,
Adolf.
you were lucky. We read about, basically 100 years of Swedish history.
Yeah.
Those were one of the big points. I am genuinely interested in military history.
Sure.
So a few things are bound to stick with me.
Yeah.
But to be honest, though, it's scary. We're looking now. So when we were recording this is June 2020.
Yeah.
And it's not even a year ago since we released the Great War album, right?
That's true.
And I've already forgotten so much of the research we've done.
If you probably...
That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I get so annoyed with myself sometimes, because I watch these reactions and sometimes I rewatch them, and it's very difficult to sort of keep a lot of the information unless you're using and talking about it, or you're writing an essay, unless you're actually doing something with the information you're taking to then basically solidify it in your memory, so you're repeating it in either spoken form or written form. It's hard for that information to stick. Sorry, he's being a pain, my dog. But yeah, that's what I would say. So I understand why he's forgotten a lot of that history.
You could probably dig up. You'll notice that people ask me stuff about writing the whole Great War show. Can you do a talk about this? I'm like, I'm not gonna. And then you start, and then it just comes. It
comes back.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Because for me, it's I feel like I've forgotten about as much as I learned. Like the hard drive is full. Something
that's important. Because remember what they say. They say if you want to learn something, don't read a book about it. Write a concept album about it. That's what they say. But
I was about to agree, but then obviously he said an album.
But they did not say. They did not say why we have a Polish thing behind us. Why is that Polish there?
Well, Killing Ground is about the Battle of Fraustadt, which is modern day Wyszów, I think it's pronounced. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but it is in modern day Poland.
So, because I never think of Saxony as being Upper Saxony as being Poland, but I was mistaken. It is actually Poland.
Yeah,
it was Joachim that said we need this, and we need the Swedish flag in it as well to actually show both of this.
Yeah, I mean obviously this battle Fraustadt has nothing to do with the Warsaw Uprising, but it does have something to do with Poland. So I thought we'd leave it in.
Once again. I'm Cornelis Vriesvik.
And I am Astrid Lindgren.
Really? Wow, I love what you've done with your hair.
Oh, thanks.
And we're, I'm dead and all. But
see you next week.
I really enjoyed that. It's always good to see Lindy, Idel and the band members have a good chat and talk about some of the songs that they have made. Thoroughly enjoyed it as always. If you guys enjoyed my reaction and you're looking forward to future reactions, you know what to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you in the next video.